Hi everyone, it's Jackie at Spare Room Studio. I'm back today to colour this version of the Mad Hatter. The book is Alice in Wonderland colouring book, and I'm not sure if it's a publishing house. I think it is, and not an artist name, but Max Brenner is on the back page there. I think this could be AI generated art. I'm just going to make sure that we're nice and in focus there. I think it may be AI generated art. However, if it is, I think there's enough of a touch of human hand gone into this, because most of the pages have the correct amount of fingers. Hair seems to match up. There's a few things that don't seem to make sense, but on the whole, it pretty much seems to match up. So I think if it is AI generated, then it has been digitally altered and edited by a human. I coloured this page recently and I did enjoy it, but there was a few areas that I wasn't quite sure what was going on, didn't seem to make a lot of sense, which suggests to me perhaps that element of AI that we see in colouring books. I bought this book blind, so it was only once I had it that I realised what I may have bought, but I like the images enough that I decided to keep it. And I know some of you will not buy AI generated books for moral purposes because you feel like artists are missing out, and I fully understand that. However, I did buy the book, and now that I have it, I'm going to colour it. So what I'm going to colour with today is I've got Ohuhu art markers in the 200 set with a fine and a broad tip. And I've got these markers here. The company is called Hautmec. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. I bought them on Amazon Australia. The set is a set of 36, and it's primarily blues and violet sort of shades. It was $10.99 Australian dollars, and I had a $3 coupon, so it ended up costing me $7.99 for 36 markers, which I felt was a good enough deal to warrant trying them out and see how they go. My Ohuhu set, I do have some of my colours are starting to run dry, so it's a supplement for the time being till I decide how I'm going to proceed with alcohol marker purchases. So I shall get started. I've chosen 3 colours here. From the Ohuhu set, it's B459 Marine Blue, and from the other set, it's 76 Sky Blue and 183 Phthalo Blue. So I'll get started. This is not really a colour along, it's more of a colour and chat style video. And I'll give you a little bit of an update on how things have been going with myself and the channel and so on. So if you haven't watched any of the recent videos, first of all, thank you for people who have been watching regularly. The channel is now monetized, and I was able to purchase some new books with my first paycheck from the channel. So thank you to everybody who has watched any video. It is greatly appreciated because I'm able to reinvest that money back into the channel. I hope to maybe purchase some, technology to improve what I'm doing with recording, and potentially some materials as I need them for colouring on the channel. Maybe some books and so on. So thank you so much to everyone who has been involved. I appreciate all your comments. I try to do my best to answer all of them. I definitely read all of them, and I appreciate very much you taking the time to watch and comment and share your thoughts with me. It is very much appreciated. So that's the first thing with the channel. I had actually recorded colouring this page here, but I had a very naughty dog who kept knocking the tripod and making noise and generally being a bit of a nuisance. So I ended up deleting that video. I coloured it all with alcohol markers, and see, these are the things that don't quite match up sometimes with AI generated images, which makes me think that it could be, because there seems to be an excess of folds of fabric here for some reason. I did colour that other image with alcohol markers and then use Prismacolor pencils to come back and do details and put in some extra colour and so on. So I really enjoyed it. The paper is nice in this book. It's Amazon printed paper, and usually with the Amazon printed paper here in Australia, the paper has a little bit of tooth to it. This paper seems to be a little bit smoother, and because it's got the grayscale and a lot of line work and so on, it was actually really nice to colour, and it came together really quickly. It was a reasonably easy page to colour, and I quite like that. There are times where you like to be challenged and times where it's nice to just have that simple colour. So again, there's a bit of stuff going on here that doesn't really make much sense. That is what worries me a little bit, that it will, it could be an AI generated book. Now, I'm not going to pass judgment on AI myself, but I will share my thoughts about it. I feel like now that we've opened the box, like Pandora's box, that AI is not going away. It's infiltrating our life in so many different areas of our life, not just in art. And I find the whole concept of AI to be troubling. It's like everything that we've experienced with technology since I've been a child, in that improvements can be, for the greater good, and it's fantastic and makes life easier, and, scientific advancements help people and all the rest of it. But invariably, it ends up being used by people that don't mean the greater good. And, it can be used in ways and means that the creators never envisaged, and that's what worries me greatly with AI in general. From a creator standpoint, I know that there's a lot of moral reasons why AI generated art is not good, and I don't necessarily wish to support it, but I did read all the write-up for this book, and it didn't actually state that it was AI. I did look for that purposely. And a lot of the time now, Amazon's pretty good at stating when a book contains AI generated images, so they like people to, or creators to, actually state that and be upfront about that. So I've got very mixed feelings about it, but as I said, I have purchased the book, and it was my error, and I wasn't going to send it back, and I do like some of these images well enough that I'm going to be colouring them. So please no judgment on that, because I don't judge other people for their book choices and their general purchasing choices. So I would like that same courtesy to be shown, you know, back to me as well. So that's really all I've got to say on that. I think it's going to be, in terms of artwork and colouring books and so on, it's going to be a very emotive issue, and I don't wish to put any creators, artists out of business by purchasing AI generated stuff, and it does worry me. That's not the right word, sorry, worries not. It concerns me where the sources come from that they generate these images with. I know, having worked as a visual artist, creating my own work and selling it, that you don't wish to have any element of your work stolen or taken without fair recognition, and that's totally understandable, and you know, genuinely it's to be expected and is deserved, I feel. And so there's a lot of moral implications when it comes to you know, the world of colouring book creators and artists that are being affected by AI generated artworks. So I do my best generally to avoid purchasing AI, and in the past I've had some books that were truly awful. You know, the terrible, stupid mistakes that don't get picked up or edited, and those books have gone into the bin, into the recycle bin to be precise. But, you know, once you've made an error with buying a book, you have a bit of a quandary, because the book's already been purchased, you've already spent the money, and no matter what you do with that book is not going to help colouring book artists and visual artists once you've already got it. I could have sent it back, of course, but I felt like it was my error in ordering it without really knowing. And so, you know, this book's here and I'm going to colour it now. All right, so that's pretty much how I feel on, you know, that subject. What else has been happening? So a bit of a life update for you. I mentioned in the community tab that I've got another infection that I'm dealing with at the moment in my surgical wound. If you haven't followed the channel before, I have got a video that discusses what happened to me through the month of August, and I won't go into all of those details again, but suffice to say I'm still on the road to recovery, but it may be a little bit slower because of having an infection again. It's incredibly frustrating. I just want to be done with it all now, to be honest, and get on with things, but it is what it is. You've got to, you know, you've got to deal with what's going on, don't you? So this is the Sky Blue number 76, by the way. So still sort of on light duties, being careful not to overdo things too much, and I've been colouring a lot, which is always good. Never going to complain about being able to colour in lots. I think that was a band there, so yeah, you know, that it's never a hardship to have lots of colouring time for me. Some good news is that my son has been approved for a rental property, and he will be moving out over the course of the next few weeks, hopefully. And what that means for me is that I will be able to have my own dedicated creative space back again. What I'm going to do here is, this looks a bit like some sort of shiny damask fabric or patterned fabric that this hat is made out of. So I'm going to actually blend some different colours in here, but it's going to be quite random because the pattern isn't very well defined. And again, this is another thing that smacks of AI generated art to me. So I'm just going to do a bit of abstract colour in some of this patterning that is here. So yeah, my son obviously is very excited because, you know, he didn't wish to be living here for as long as he was, so he wanted his own place, which is perfectly normal and understandable. So once he's got himself sorted out and I know exactly what furniture I'm going to be left with and so on, whether he needs any help with furniture that is, you know, currently in those rooms that he and my granddaughter use, I can look at re-establishing my spare room studio. And if you've ever wondered where the title comes from, Spare Room Studio, here in Australia, we tend to call any room, you know, a small bedroom or any room that you're not using as a bedroom or a dedicated guest room or whatever, tends to be called the spare room. And the spare room becomes the dumping ground for all the other things in your house that you don't have a home for, or is waiting to be taken out to the shed or, you know, disposed of or whatever. Usually the spare room becomes the dumping ground, and it's never normally set up as a dedicated guest room. It's usually a bit of a haphazard room. And so that is why many years ago, when I was starting a creative outlet and selling work and so on, I used to joke that, you know, I had a studio in my spare room and it just became Spare Room Studio. So I don't know if in other countries you have rooms like that too, that you call it a spare room, or you might have another name for it. Let me know in the comments if that's the case. But it's usually one of those rooms that you don't necessarily have set up as a guest room with a bed or anything like that. It's usually the type of room that, you know, becomes a catch-all for junk and that sort of thing. So yes, I'm really excited that I'm going to be able to set up a dedicated space so that when I'm working, you know, with watercolours or have a whole selection of markers out, for example, or whatever, I don't have to pack them away because somebody wants to eat at the dining room table, or that my granddaughter's coming and I have to make sure they're all out of her reach. It's going to be really nice to have that ability to spread out. And also all my storage boxes that are up on top of the wardrobe with all my gear in, I'm going to be able to get those down and actually put my hands on supplies easily and know exactly what I've got because I can see it all. I tend to put things away in these boxes on the top of the shed and then forget what I've got. So I'm excited about that. So what I'm doing here is I've basically got equivalent of a light, medium and dark marker, and I'm moving between those three markers and blending them in. So there I've got pretty much the mid-tone and the light, and I've just kept working at them until they're blending without any hard edges. And I can do the same thing with the darker blue. I can put, you know, some dark in where I think there might be a shadowed area, and then using that mid blue just start to blend it back out again. So I'm constantly moving between those three markers, building up the colour and working at it until I get to a point where I'm happy with it. And usually what I do is not so concentrated on that area. I'll do an area and then move away and keep coming back, because I like to view the page as a whole and keep evaluating where those lights and those darks and so on need to go. It's a constant process back and forward, and that's how I like to approach blending most mediums and most colours, but definitely with alcohol markers. So you can see I've got some darks in down there, but I haven't really got very many up there yet. But as the page progresses and goes along, I'll keep working at that and keep nutting that out as I go along, until I've got it to a point where I feel like I'm happy with it. So I've got this lovely bright blue for his jacket. That sleeve seems to be, it appears to that he has the bottom part of that sleeve is coming from underneath what's up here. That's the way that those folds have been drawn, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. So what I think I might do is I might ignore that and just continue to make it as if it is all the same jacket sleeve. And there's some suggestions here that there might be some sort of striping up the sleeve, you know, the length of the sleeve. So what I'll do to start with is just get this basic light blue in. This is the lightest blue. And then again, I can keep working at darkening and shadows and so on as I go along. So I was thinking about his waistcoat. I might actually make like a brown or a taupe, you know, light brown sort of neutral colour, because I quite often like to put brown with this nice light blue. It's a bit of an unusual palette, but it appeals to me for some reason, so I just feel like doing that with this one. Normally I go for those sort of very vivid, over-the-top rainbow, you know, a clown vomited at the circus sort of colour scheme. And I don't feel like that today. So this week my husband has been away on a fishing trip. He goes with a group of friends. It's all men, all guys, and they go and camp with swags and camp out rough. You know, they go off the beaten track and go four-wheel driving and all that sort of thing, which they've done a couple of times now, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. So the trip was planned prior to me having all these complications, and he was a bit guilty about going. He felt bad about leaving me behind, but there's really not a lot he can do, so I wasn't too bothered about him going. It has been a little bit hard. I can't see what's going on with my lower back, and he's not here to have a look and tell me, but it's only a week, and I do have nurses coming twice a week, so they are dealing with the important stuff. So it's been interesting to see that Hamish, the dog, has been missing, or appears to be missing my husband. Given that it took so long for him to actually bond with him, it has been nice to know that he is actually noticing that my husband's gone. And it'll be interesting to see how he is when he comes home. It's also going to be interesting to see how he copes with the changes in the household when my son moves out, because eventually he and my granddaughter won't be here as often. So whether Hamish will remember them and have to readjust each time they visit will be a bit tricky and interesting to see how it, eventuates. Okay, so I'm going to put those aside for now, because I feel like I've done as much as I want to with that blue without knowing what else is going to be in there. And I'm going to use, let's have a think. I quite like the colour Putty. Here we go. Don't know why, because it's not an exciting colour, but I really like it. So to start with, we're going to do his bow a different colour, and this is where I'm going to trip up a little bit. I'm not sure what all these folds of fabric are. So when there's something tricky like that, what I tend to do is stick with what I definitely know or can follow, the folds of the fabric, and block in the colour. And then with the other bits, you tend to have to do a bit of fudging. I call it fudging. And when there's something that's indistinct and I'm not quite sure what's going on, I'll try to use a neutral, pretty basic mid-tone neutral colour that doesn't draw the eye and, bring too much attention to it. See, I'm thinking, is this another layer of clothing underneath here, which doesn't make sense, as in he's got a coat and a waistcoat, you wouldn't have another waistcoat? Or is it a very elaborate tie that he's got, and a bit like a tie or cravat, he's got a tie pin or something in there, and all these folds are all coming from this very elaborate bow? Because that doesn't really make sense either, does it? I think, somewhere there's a shirt underneath. So what colour will we do his bow? I think we might go for a deeper brown, or this is quite an unusual colour, grey wolf hair, E685. It's very neutral, so let's go for that to start with. We can always add in pops of colour in other places. I'll go for the chisel because that's going to take forever with the fine. So that definitely looks like bow. As is that. As is that. Okay, I've gone over the line there a bit, but never mind. Actually, what I can do there is let's put a bit of colourless blender on there just to disguise it a bit. Okay, so we've got, that's all bow. And I thought that was. And that. But this is where it starts to get tricky. So could that be some sort of shirt, and then is that part of the shirt? Let's treat it as such. So, okay. I want a very, very pale grey, so I'm going to go for CG021 neutral grey, and I'm just going to shade a few of these areas where there is some lines and some grayscale suggestions, and then leave a bit of white, and we can just suggest that that's a shirt without actually describing it. And then all these buttons can be treated the same way. I think that's probably the best way to deal with that. Now over here, again, this is a weird little bit of patterning here that doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're going to cover that up with dark and make it look like it's behind the lapel there. So I hope this video finds you all well. I've had a few of you reach out to me and wish me well with my recovery, and I'm getting to know some of you from your messages, and it's been really nice. I'm so grateful for your kindness, and you know who you are. It really is a nice pick-me-up to see that you've got a message from someone, or one of you has commented on a video, and it's really heartwarming to know that you know, people care. This community is quite a caring community, and people are interested enough to reach out and say, you know, hey, I hope you're doing okay. It really is greatly appreciated. I know I keep saying that, but you know, really words are not enough sometimes. Okay, let's leave that at that. Now here on his hat, I'm going to go for Putty E182. And I think the pops of colour can come from the roses and the flowers that are around him and on his hat and his hair. We might go for something nice and vibrant for his hair. Make him a nice auburn or ginger Mad Hatter. So So if you didn't watch the previous videos on the book haul, I purchased quite a few Alice in Wonderland themed books, and I'm really enjoying colouring them. I think I've got maybe one left that I haven't coloured in yet, along with my older books that I already had in my collection. I have thoroughly enjoyed colouring my Alice in Wonderland pages recently. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that I went for so many different styles, because it's kept the theme really interesting and engaging for me as the colourist, to have different styles to keep, you know, trying and working on. So the gloves, I want them to be along the same sort of lines as well, but maybe more brown. Let's just check what this colour looks like. It might not be dark enough. So it might do for the, yeah, might do for the starters, and then bring in, yeah, that one. Okay, so I've got E289, which is light colour, and Y468, which is taffy. So light colour is the lighter of the two, and I'm going to do all of the glove with that. I should be using my chisel tip a lot more than I do, but I get lazy and I do the small details and then I stay with the fine tip. Does anyone else do that? I don't have any brush, do I? No, I don't. I don't have any brush tip alcohol markers yet, so maybe when I look into purchasing some replacements. So that's his glove, and then it looks like he's got some sort of leather strap there. Okay, let's go with that for now. And I'm going to go over these things. I thought I'd make a feature of them, but I don't think I will after all. Let's go to the chisel. So there is a bit of grayscale in this book, and there's also quite a lot of very fine line work that describes and suggests where shadows might go. So it really does help with your placement of those things, but also it helps when you're doing an alcohol marker. Oh goodness. Alcohol marker, that you don't need to do a lot of work, because the alcohol marker goes over that grayscale and it changes the appearance, and it does a lot of the work for you. So that's why I like using alcohol markers on these grayscale pictures. And that is lye colour. I'm going to suggest that there is a bit of a stripe going in this waistcoat. It can do shadow colours as well to start with. They need to be darkened up even more yet. Okay, so then we're going to use taffy, and I'm going to start going over some of those grayscale darker areas now with the taffy. And then I'm going to use lye colour to help soften those edges off, so there's no real hard edges when it dries. Some places I want a hard edge, but other places I don't. Sometimes with alcohol marker work, and a hard edge actually is useful for being descriptive about what something might be or what it might be made out of. You know, the hard edges are the little things that help suggest that information to the viewer. You know, sometimes things have very sharply defined shadows. Other things don't, and it all comes down to how diffused the light is or how bright the light is, for example. So how you choose to colour describes a lot of that information for your viewer. You know, a lot of time in life we've got those subtle gradations of colour and blending, but other times we do have hard edges, we do have shadows that are well defined and need to be well defined to tell the story. And I think what I might do is put that up here with the putty. So let's grab putty. So taffy is working as my darker colour. It's actually working well with the colour called putty, and it's also working with the lye colour. So when you can use that same colour in multiple places around the composition, it becomes the colour that unites and ties items together and describes relationships and tells stories. So sometimes it might be, you know, if you've used violet for a shadow and you can use that violet all around the picture, it helps to tie everything in. Well, I think taffy might be the colour that helps do that here. Now, if you're scared to use too many colours when you're colouring with alcohol markers, you can let that first layer of colour dry thoroughly and then come back with the same colour, the same marker, and just keep layering up layers to darken and suggest shadows and so on. That works, and there's no reason that you can't do that. However, once you get adventurous and you start using some different colours in your shadows, that's when you will find that your artwork really starts to come alive and pop, when you start being able to bring in those unusual colours for the shadows. And by that I mean, for example, if I start bringing in the sky blue, to suggest little shadows in here, you wouldn't think of using that for a colour, you know, in the waistcoat maybe, but then it starts to bring that relationship between what you're seeing over here and here in, and starts to help make things cohesive and tell more of a relationship between things. And your viewer won't necessarily notice that that's the same colour consciously, but subconsciously you do. And you know, I can use this colour maybe in his shadows on his face as well, and you wouldn't think about using blue normally, but because it's in the rest of the picture, it will work. Now hair, auburn, I'm thinking like a nice deep red. So that one is madder red, is quite dark, so that might be for shadows. Natural oak is more brown. I don't use this range of colours very often because they are quite dark. I tend to reach more for the mid and light tones in alcohol markers. What's this one? This one's called red grey, but it doesn't look anything like grey, so that will be getting used. And okay, let's get started with these three. I've got E287 Rose Beige as the lightest, E384 as the mid, and E355 Madder Red as the dark. So let's start with Rose Beige. And I'm just going to use that as the base. It's a bit bold. I'm starting to get really hungry. It's nearly dinner time and I just realised that I didn't eat any lunch today. So it's no wonder I'm hungry. Cooking isn't high on my list of important things to do. I love to eat, but I hate to cook. I'm really not into cooking at all. I'd much rather be colouring or reading or crocheting or gardening. Anything really rather than cook. I wish I was more interested because I have some friends who like to cook, and when they talk about the things that they're making, I wish I had the interest to do it myself because they sound delicious, but no, I'm really quite lazy. My mother was is a very simple cook. We never went hungry. There's always plenty, but it's usually quite standard, basic meals. And I've just sort of gone in the same way as she is. And funnily enough, I was thinking about this the other day. My fascination with Alice in Wonderland is quite amusing because my mum's name is Alice. And she's always hated her name. And I think Alice is a pretty name. And especially since I've been colouring Alice, I've been thinking about it a lot. Yeah, she really hates her name. And yet here I am, quite fascinated with the whole Alice in Wonderland thing. Maybe I should come up with something, have a permanent hashtag like Alice's daughter or something. It doesn't really tell people what the hashtag means though, does it? I'm not really well up on this business of thinking up hashtags and titles that get people to come in and view your video. How to optimise by grabbing attention with names and so on and titles. I don't understand all of that. I mean, I do. I understand why it is a thing, but I don't know how to do it. So like everything else, this is a gradual process of adding a few deeper colours in somewhere and then using the lightest colour to soften off those edges again, blend it back in. And that can be a process that takes quite a few tries, you know, like it'll dry and I'll go somewhere else and come back and I'll keep tweaking that over and over and over. Okay, so now I'll put the light colour down and I've got the E384 red grey, which is the mid colour, and then I've got E355 madder red now, and madder red is going to be a lot darker. And I'm again using the grayscale to start with as the starting point of where to darken things, and then I'll gradually work away from that, looking at where I feel like some attention needs to come. You know, like you have to think about where your light source would be falling, and obviously things that are at the top are going to be lighter than the things that are behind or below. So it's the same concept with a leaf or a flower petal or hair. Try and envisage, so for example here where these fingers are pushing the hair back, this bit's going to be a lot lighter because it's up higher, closer to the light source, and this stuff that's down below and behind is going to be darker. And again, think about what I've said too with animal fur. You do not see every single strand of hair on a person's head when you're looking at them. What you tend to see is gradual blends of shade. So the hair is going to be darker in areas and lighter in areas, and that suggests the shape of the person's head and the style of the haircut and all those sorts of details. But you do not actually see every single hair on someone's head. So don't feel like you have to draw every single hair in, because you can create a believable portrait and image of someone and the way that their hair is moving without drawing every single hair in there. And in fact, that just becomes a little bit distracting. And the danger of that is if you're not confident with that, you can actually draw attention to something that detracts from your picture rather than adds to it. So if you don't think you can do it perfectly, think about approaching it like I am here, where you're just using the light, medium and dark colour to suggest movement and shadows and shape that way. Okay, so that's, again, I just keep the 3 markers in my hand. I usually try to keep them uncapped, and then I just keep working back and forward until I get to a depth of colour that I'm happy with. I'm thinking that we might use a combination of putty, taffy and madder red to do this little leather strap here. It doesn't look to be attached to the glove or part of the glove. That's buckle. And I'm just going to use a little bit of taffy first, just to do the bits that would be underneath or behind. And I'm going to blend that back in with the putty. And then I'm going to use a little tiny bit of the madder red just in the darkest parts. And then we might use some, that's putty that I'm using now to blend it all together. And then I might use a metallic pen later to put the silver buckle on there. I think it needs to be a little bit deeper because it's blending in with that a bit too much. So I'm actually going to put a bit of red grey on there as well. And that's going to change the colour a little bit from what you're seeing on the glove. Now that's bleeding over the lines a bit there, but that's okay because I'll use the gel pen to go back on there. I'd like to do something really striking with his eyes, and there's a lot of blue, so I don't want to do blue, but I think what I might do is actually give him a vibrant green. So I'm going to start with chartreuse green. And that is a bit grey-scaled, so it's not coming up quite as bright as it normally is, but it will dry a bit lighter. And then that chartreuse can start doing some of these leaves as a base. And I can come back with some deeper colour later. And then maybe I can use that on the background as well. I might actually use it in the tea service as well. Because I'm trying to get a different look here too. I think that might be his hair down there. So I'm going to go for the darker colour. I think that's meant to be his hair. And possibly through there as well. Right, well it is now. He's got glorious hair right down his back. So because that's so dark there, I need to translate that back up here so that your eye makes that connection that that is in fact his hair. I can't see my screen, so I hope this translates on the screen as I'm thinking it should look. I'm probably going to get a rude shock when I stand up and look in my screen. Okay, so it's going to need a bit more work on it, but you get the general idea for that. So let's just see how the time is going. So we're at the hour mark now. I might just try and do a little bit more, and then I will come back and finish this off, pardon me, in the part 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do base of the green, and then I might bring in for the pattern, I might bring in some metallic, some gold or bronze for the details on the cup, maybe the handle, and there's like a line around the base of the cup there, so maybe I can play that up a little bit. So this first, there are different shapes, the cups, so what I do with this first base colour, I'm not particularly careful, and it might not be a nice block of colour, it might be a bit patchy, but I'm okay with that because I'm going to be adding a lot more as I go along, so that really is just a base. And will we have the teapot the same colour? I'm not sure yet, so I'm going to leave the teapot for now. Now, I talked about a pop of colour with the roses, and I'm not sure what colour I want that to be now. I'm thinking like one of those sort of golden yellows. You know, that's almost like an orangey yellow. What would that look like? Too close to his hair colour maybe? What is this one? Reddish yellow. Oh, I don't know, that's a bit close to his hair. Well, that's a nice colour. That's called dark pink. And that's jacaranda. Yeah, okay, I'm going to go with that. I've got pale hibiscus V890, jacaranda V280, and dark pink R186. So I'm going to start with that dark pink. I really like that colour. It's like an old rose colour. And then it's very subtly darker. This one is jacaranda. And then I've got pale hibiscus. And I'm going to use those colours in the background, I think. I'm going to do something a little bit different for starters. I'm going to do one in that. That is the dark pink. I really like that colour. I don't think I've ever used that before. So it's going to be very loosely coloured because it's quite abstract in nature. This would be great in watercolours as well, I think. So I don't want it to be matchy too much, because I just find that just looks a little bit too boring and obvious sometimes. And this is all very abstract and very loosely drawn, so it's just going to be very abstract in colour as well. I've got that blotter sheet under there. And am I going to use the chartreuse with that? I don't think I will, because then it will lose its impact here. So I'm going to go for a different green. I will go for, let's just have a look. Too dark. I'm going to start with porcelain blue to start with. And because it's all going to be rather abstract, I'm just going to do blobs of colour to start with. This is one of those ones that is drying out. And by drying out, I don't mean that the alcohol marker is drying up, it's actually running out of ink. I have used this marker a lot. Like, I reach for it just about every time I do some colouring. I will pick this marker up. So that's porcelain blue. Is there anything like that in this new set? Turquoise blue, aqua mint, mint blue. What's mint blue like? Oh, that's got no colour in it. Oh, very little colour if it has. Wow. That's what you get for buying cheap markers. That's bizarre. Okay, no colour in it. Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything in that set that's going to be the same. I might need to actually bring in some watercolour to finish the background, or water-based markers maybe. That might be an idea. Or I might have to look in my box of alcohol markers that is just very much random open stock purchases that are all sorts of different colours. Okay, that probably doesn't make any sense yet, but hopefully it will when I finish. What about if I do, what's pale green look like? And that might be nice. So I'm going to want it to look like random, not like a bokeh or bokeh background, but you know, like a random background. Where's that porcelain blue again? Yeah, I need a new porcelain blue. Yep, that's what it's called. So you can see the concept though. I just, if this one wasn't drying up so much, I just would keep working at that blend there. There's that pale green. That might work. So I've got peacock green there, which is this dark colour. And what you might see happening is that when you use the lighter colour, the pale green, it almost works like a colourless blender and leaches some of that darkness away and draws it out, and then we get a bit of a blend happening. And then we really need a lighter green again, which I don't have, I don't think. Chartreuse green, let's try some of that. Shouldn't really work because I've got the really blue porcelain colour, and then I'm putting a yellow green with it, but it does sometimes, bizarrely. Yeah, so I'll keep working away at that. If the light just changed then, it's a lamp that has come on in it with a timer, so I apologise if that changes the lighting very much. So what I was saying was this pale green's got quite a blue look to it, and I'm using it with the chartreuse green there, which is a yellow green, and it really shouldn't work in theory, but it does. When you see the finished page and I hold it up to the camera, hopefully you'll see what I mean. So that's what I will have to keep doing here with the background. I will have to keep working away with the various greens that I've pulled out and just keep blending them into each other. And around those roses. I might have to put a few drops of rubbing alcohol or something into this marker and see if I can eke a little bit more out of it. That's the trouble with alcohol markers that I find personally, is that I get a couple of colours that I really like, and I use them so much until they start to dry out like this, and I haven't necessarily got a replacement lined up. Okay, so I think it might be time to have a bit of a break. Got quite a collection of markers coming out now. So I'll just show you this corner here. So you can see how the colours are starting to work together there and almost give like a watercolour bloom effect there. And this is where I need to work a lot more to get that porcelain blue blended in. But you can see how the colours, I've got some very blue-grey green next to very yellow-green, but hopefully it will start working a bit like a watercolour does. So I'll just try and show you. So here is where I started to put that pale blue in there with the brown, so it's bringing in that colour and a little touch of it there. Okay, so that's how he's looking so far. Let's get that back into focus. So I think that's coming along, and this is going to be a bit of work to get the background how I want it with the alcohol markers, but we'll get there. And I can also use pencil, or I can bring in some water-based marker on there. But yeah, it's going to work, I hope. That still isn't really reading as his hair. I don't know what it is, but that colour is okay down there anyway. We can work with that. Okay, so there you go. If you're still with me, thank you for watching. I do appreciate you staying to the end. And part 2, I will be coming back, hopefully finishing it with alcohol markers. Sorry, this is Hamish coming to say hello. I will finish with alcohol markers, or I will bring in some other things, and definitely some metallic gel pens. So there's Hamish saying hello. Just see his nose. You might have seen his little eye peeping through there. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed that. I have. I've been having fun. So I will see you again really soon with part 2. Bye now.